So we're talking about the Meleches HaMishkan, and he's saying that when they received from Klal Yisrael was so excited to create the Mishkan that everybody was bringing, and there was more than they had need for. ויש לפרש בזה בדרך רמז דרך שם מחז"ל על כשי החסידים הראשונים תרוסה מוסי נייסס ומלאכת מוסי נייסס. Chasidim Rishonim were the people who lived after the Nevi'im. So Klal Yisrael went through many different periods, and in each period we had different leaders. The leaders would be based on the people that were in the generation. So for each generation, HaKadosh Baruch Hu prepared leaders. It says that when Adam Rishon was in Gan Eden, HaKadosh Baruch Hu showed him all the generations that are to come and their leaders. And based on the leaders, Adam Rishon could see the entire generation. Because the leaders, like we've discussed, they interpret what life means to the people. And according to that meaning, the people live, and then based on that interpretation, how close that is to human nature, the people can succeed with that interpretation, can find themselves, can find peace. And the more the interpretation is different than the nature of the people, then the people are conflicted between their nature and what they're trying to accomplish, and then it's challenging for the people. And so this makes the difference between a Dar Zakai and a Dar Chayev. That a Dar Zakai understands themselves appropriately, so they get to a conclusion in their mind that they deserve good, that they deserve kindness. And a Dar Chayev doesn't understand themselves appropriately, so their conclusion in their mind is that they're guilty. And that conclusion is the conclusion that causes HaKadosh Baruch Hu to sit on a Kisei Din, to interact with reality as if we're guilty. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as we know, never changes, but the people change. The people and how they approach Him, they change. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu represents the ultimate human nature, which is accurate according to the Torah. That's why the Torah and HaKadosh Baruch Hu are one, meaning through the Torah you'll recognize your nature, and then Arizal v'Yisrael v'Kitcha b'Richu Chad, they all unite as one. And so HaKadosh Baruch Hu stays the same always. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is, what is a human being supposed to be? What's the real interpretation of a human being? And we know the midas of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's a Chanan, he's a Rachem, he's a Erech HaPayim, he's Rav Chesed. These are the intrinsic midas of the human being. Because this is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu created. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to share himself with something, with a being that's similar to himself. And this is how, when we want to cling to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hadbeg b'midosav, become like he behaves, and then you'll be one with him, because your behavior will match the behaviors with which the world was created. And so every generation tries to accommodate this being, this nature, that's already intrinsic in each one of us. And each generation has a different level of success. And so after Moshe Rabbeinu gave us the Torah, what does the Torah mean? Each generation, according to the leaders, is going to interact with the people and tell them what it means. And so we had first, Yeshua took over. They said, Pnei Moshe ke Pnei Chama, Pnei Yeshir ke Pnei Levanim. Moshe was like the sun, compared to Yeshir like the moon, meaning the light was so limited, so constricted compared to Moshe, and yet they had open miracles. Yeshir was very, very, very advanced in his ability to lead Klal Yisrael, and his understanding of what this nature, which we call HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what this intrinsic being that needs us to be like him in order for us to work, in order for us to be able to be here. He knew how to be close to that and how to do it because he was so close to Moshe. He never removed himself from Moshe. He clung to him his entire lifetime. Like it says, Lo yomish mitoch oil, he never left Moshe Rabbeinu's tent. He was literally there, constantly, always picking up wisdom. And so he went and he led Klal Yisrael, and he still had access, but then it went and it got worse and worse over the next few hundred years until we got the Shoftim that were leading Klal Yisrael. Some of them didn't know even the most basic learning. They didn't know the Torah and what it means, but they had the heart. They had the desire, like Yiftach. Yiftach, the one who ended up sacrificing his daughter because of his stupidity. So he was a leader of Klal Yisrael. It says, Yiftach b'doreh kishmir b'doreh. When he leads, he represents, Kaviyachol, the one that created life, because now he's the leader. He has the power to help. He has the ability to do what's necessary. And so then Klal Yisrael was at that level, that's what they had access to. That was the level. That was their way of living. And that was their understanding. And everything that happened in their life, all the individual stories, was based on that undeveloped way of looking. Because there was nobody to enhance the view, there was nobody there to clarify what's really taking place. And so then we had Shmuel HaNavi, and Shmuel HaNavi brought back the Klal Yisrael wisdom. Shmuel HaNavi was very big, like it says, it was Shokol Neged Moshe V'Aharon, and he made the kings. He was the one that prepared Shaul HaMelech, and he was Meshechem V'Shemen HaMishcho, that he should become king on Klal Yisrael, and then David HaMelech. So he changed the leadership in Klal Yisrael from Shoftim to Melochim, the kings. And then that was the leadership. The leadership went to kings. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when Klal Yisrael asked for a king, in the time of Shmuel, he complained, saying that Klal Yisrael doesn't any longer want to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu directly. Klal Yisrael is looking to be like all the other nations that have people that they can be proud with, that they can put on top and say, you see, this is our person, this is our king. And so there was something negative about this. HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't appreciate that Klal Yisrael wants a king. But that's how it moved from religious leadership, so to speak, from the spiritual, the one who know and understand wisdom, to more of a strongman model, where we had every few kings, we had some really nasty people who caused all of the masses, all of the followers of the kingdom, to go to places that are extremely dangerous for the human neshama, for our sensitivities, for our spiritual interaction with life. And so we see how, based on these kings, the masses were just following. Each king, if the king was powerful and the king was looked up to and he was the leader, as soon as his mind was running the wrong way, the masses had no choice. They were just following blindly. And so we had big calamities take place. We had people dying in the masses because people were misunderstanding life, and they were getting into a big conflict with life. Life wasn't working. People were getting into conflicts with themselves, within themselves, and between themselves and each other. And then there's corrosion in the family unit, in the individual. There's no safe place anymore. And so this followed until the Churban HaBayis. The Churban HaBayis was a time where the kings were taken down. They were conquered by others. And then we had different types of leadership. Went back more to the leadership of the wise, because it was the wise now that were simply keeping track of the truth. It wasn't anymore a matter of being able to tell people what to do, because the Goyim had that power. But now the wise had the power simply to advise, what is the truth? What does wisdom say? How should we be? And so we see how the Torah evolved like that. So at that period, there was a people called Chasidim Rishonim. Chasidim Rishonim were people who were not at the level of Nevi'ah, but they were people that prepared themselves. They prepared their mind and they prepared their hearts to come to the level of Nevi'ah. And that's why they're called Chasidim Rishonim, is because in order for a person to come close to the Creator, there's two paths. One path is the path of chasidus, the right-hand path. The path of chasidus means that a person becomes so kind that HaKadosh Baruch Hu becomes kind to him in return in that way. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes care of him, because at this level of kindness that he is interacting with, midah keneged midah, he deserves to be taken care of. And so he wakes up a spiritual power by being on that level that gives him guidance. And this is how Avraham Avinu found HaKadosh Baruch Hu, through the midas HaChesed, by opening up his house to all the four corners and designating all his time and all his energy to making the world a better place. He awoke something within the collective that gave a specific importance to his work, that gave a specific importance to his existence, and made him specific promises about the future of his lineage. And so when we wake up that midas HaChesed in us, then on the opposite side, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wakes up his Midas HaChesed. The other side is the left side, is where a person goes exactly according to the Midas HaDin. That everything that needs to be done, he does it exactly the way that it needs to be done, and he doesn't miss. And in this path, HaKadosh Baruch Hu goes back at him with Midas HaDin. And then if he's right, then he deserves everything, because he kept all the laws exactly as they should have been kept. If he's wrong, the Midas HaDin that he woke up becomes his enemy, becomes a problem for him, because he has areas that are not the way the Midas HaDin wants it to be. It's not exactly by the book. And so that's why it's very dangerous to wake up Midas HaDin, and that's why in Galus, none of us have the ability to go through this left-hand path. None of us can ever stand properly by the Midas HaDin and say, we have done everything the way that it needs to be, now give me what I deserve. And so, as soon as there was a Chor Mabayis, the people that were trying to gain access to the higher realms, they did it through the way of chasidus. Chasidus means that they take the right-hand path, that they take kindness, extreme kindness. And this is also the path of the Baal Shem Tov, that he woke up when chasidus, the way that we know now chasidus, even though today the people that call themselves Chasidim have nothing to do with the Derech HaBaal Shem Tov, but originally the Derech HaBaal Shem Tov was a way of kindness, that through being kind, we can wake up in the neshama of a person a different force, a different koyach, that is more pure, that is more clean, that cannot be contaminated. And so these Chasidim Rishonim, they used to spend 3 hours around every davening. They would spend an hour just clearing out their mind before davening, so that they can be present when they daven. They would spend an hour davening, and then they would spend an hour just soaking in that level that they achieved after their davening. And so 9 hours a day was spent with these types of practices. And obviously that's why they were called Chasidim Rishonim, because these people were completely outside the realm of the practical world. They had no relationship to it anymore. A person that sits 9 hours busy internally, busy spiritually, it means that his vision, his sight, becomes spiritual vision. He hardly remembers what the rest of the world looks like. And so these people, they had a special schedule that would somehow be accommodated. And so the Gemara asks, if they spent 9 hours a day just davening and preparing for davening, so then when did they work and when did they learn? And the Gemara answers that mitoich shechasidim hoyu, because they were Chasidim, so they had this special type of koyach. So melachton mizbareches, they had a bracha in their work, meaning that they would only have to work very little and they would have big results. V'torosan mishtameres, that when they learn, even if they learn only very little, it goes inside and it becomes more, and it has a kiyum inside. Why? Because they're so pure. So because they're so pure, their field where they're sowing is so pure. So whatever you sow in there is going to grow manifold compared to another field that's not so ready. So even though you sow a lot, sometimes you only get little results. So this field is so pure, it's so connected, it's so fruitful, that a little bit and a lot comes of it. So that's what the Gemara says about Chasidim Rishonim. So he says, "V'tirtzim v'tech shechasidim hoy terosim mishtameres v'melachtim mizbereches." V'zeh shlomo v'shemram eskan hamlocha. So going back on this pasuk, the pasuk said that the work that they did was enough for the Mishkan. So he says, Amlocha hoy sadayam. He says the melacha we're talking about is the melacha of the avodah shebelev. That their davening was such a powerful connection that they made to the spiritual world, that was enough. L'chol amlocha la'asas oiso. Ayni sho yedai l'chol melachtem atzorech la'asas. Ki oiso melachtem izbareches. Their davening was enough for all their work. So because their davening was in such a level, so what they did somehow had such a bracha that they wouldn't have to do anything else. And this is why they were at such a high level. They were close to the level of prophecy. At the level of prophecy, it means that a person is completely tuned in to the higher intelligence. In which case, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives him direct advice how he needs to behave. But these people, they didn't have direct advice, but they were close to already intuitively feeling it. They were close to that place. And so from where they were, they already had enough guidance to understand how to interact with the rest of their day, with their practical needs. V'hoiser haina oiser satoire, rotzulem shegam dai letorosam. V'hoiser, so it says the same letters as Torah. So even for the Torah, ma'at sheloimdim ki torosam ishtameres kanal b'hoven. That even though they learned only very little, but their mind, the way that they received the learning, was they were receiving the very essence of what was being told. And when you receive the essence, then you can make from that a lot of Torah that in another person, that all that has to be expressed, all that has to be explained. But for them, the roots were enough to understand everything on their own. And therefore, they didn't have, even the learning didn't have to be the same amount. Gam yesh lema beremes torosam mishtameres loshen shmorim. Haine shoyse zakem mezukig kol shmorim v'suge psoilis. Mach nishoy chasidim. ולכן הוא ידע במחת שאלוהים כאמורם אחד אמר ואחד אמר מבבת שיכוון ליבה בשמיים. So he says also the Torah, why is it mishtameres? He says could be the mishtameres as a lotion of shmorim. That the Torah was clean from anything negative. It didn't have any parts in it that can cause damage, that can not be digested by the human spirit in an easy way. And therefore, when they were receiving the Torah was pure for them. And that purity is what caused it to become so much more effective than other people who learn Torah that's not pure, learn Torah that's mixed with all kinds of other ideas. And that's why he says, like Chazal teach us, Echad amar ve'echad amamit ivat shechaven liv l'shamayim. That when a person wants to know, should I learn more, but I won't be able to be so focused, or should I learn less? And so the answer is that a person should always look at his heart, that he wants to enhance his spiritual understanding, his spiritual potential as much as possible. And from there he should decide how he should behave. So it's not about if he does a lot or if he does a little. It's about the kavanah. How is your intention? Is your intention properly directed? Because your intention being properly directed will get you the required results. But when the attention is on the wrong thing, then we don't get the right results. For example, if we learn, and we learn because we want to finish a certain amount, so we're not really learning in the appropriate manner to fulfill the deeper understanding, to be able to go to the bottom of what we're trying to learn and understand it appropriately, because our goal is not to get to the bottom of the learning. Our goal is to move, to get to the end of it. And so the intention is very important, especially when it comes to things that are related to thinking, because that will tell us how we're going about the project. What's our goal? What are we measuring as a success? And that's going to guide how we go about fulfilling that on a practical level. And this we see also by korbanos, where a person who has money would bring a cow, a person who had less money would bring a smaller animal, or would bring a bird, or would bring a mincha. And the Torah specifically emphasizes that we shouldn't think that the one who brings less is somehow bringing anything less to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because mitzad HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he doesn't need our cow, and he doesn't need our birds, and he doesn't need our food. The goal is to show the importance that we place on our relationship with him, the importance that we place on understanding that what's taking place here and now is meaningful and important, and therefore we care about how we're doing it and what we're doing and what we're not doing and what we should be doing and what we shouldn't be doing. And so when a person brings, he brings from a place internally where he's showing that he cares. So for a person that has a lot, he has to take just enough money that he should care. But for a person that doesn't have anything, so he cares about everything, so he doesn't have to bring much. And because it's important, and because it might be everything that he has, or half of what he has, or a quarter of what he has, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees that, like the pasuk says, "V'nefesh kisakriv," that the nefesh is makriv itself. Because the nefesh, when we talk about giving over our nefesh to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what does that mean? Our nefesh is always HaKadosh Baruch Hu's. We don't even know how to hold on to it. We're just thinking from within it. So how can we possibly withhold our nefesh from HaKadosh Baruch Hu? And what would it mean to give over our nefesh to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? And the answer is that when we speak about our nefesh, giving it to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we're not talking about giving it away. We're talking about allowing it to not feel safe. Because when we feel unsafe, it's like we've given away our nefesh. It means we don't feel like our relationship with our nefesh is stable, like we can have control, that we can be involved with our nefesh the way that feels right. And that means giving over our nefesh. So for example, if somebody doesn't have anything to eat, and he gives away the last money that he has, then he's given over his nefesh. He's now given over his control over how he's going to feel and what he's going to eat and what his life is going to look like for the next some amount of time. And this is giving over the nefesh. He's giving over the very most important thing that we all are looking for, is to feel safe. Before we can feel safe, nothing else is important. And so when we want to be makrif HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it means that we are going to look for his interests even at a time when we don't feel safe, even at a time when our nefesh doesn't feel safe. And that's called to be makriv nefesh. It's called to realize that the nefesh is always in his hands. We never can control our nefesh. It's not that we're really giving anything away. We're not giving anything away. We never had control in the first place. But we're allowing our ego to realize that we don't have control. And we're okay with it. And that's a big akrava. That means that a person gives away his sense of self. Because in order to build a sense of self, you have to have a nefesh to build it on. If you're not sure about your nefesh, you're not sure about your future, you're not sure about what's happening, then you don't really have a very strong sense of self. Everything you think about yourself might very soon disappear. And so when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, it's not that we make ourselves more vulnerable. We don't become more vulnerable. The opposite is true. When we allow ourselves to become more vulnerable, we become more powerful because we're okay with vulnerability. We were already vulnerable. We always are. But when we can be vulnerable and be okay with it, when we can recognize it, when we can allow our imagination into that place, then we can survive in different environments that previously we couldn't have survived in. So it makes us more resilient. It gives us more power. And how can we get to a place where we can do this? How can we allow ourselves to become vulnerable? It's only if we'll recognize that the one who created us is kind. As long as we don't believe that, we're always going to be grasping for control. Because who is going to give us a sense of any safety? Who's going to make sure that the future is going to be okay? And so if we don't believe he's good, we're going to live in a state of denial, and we're going to convince ourselves that we're in control. Because we have to. How else are we going to live? But once we believe that he's good, if we really understand that he is good, if we can separate what's happening in this world between what people can cause and what the structure itself, what nature itself provided, what was the intention, if we can see his kindness, then we can allow ourselves to be vulnerable. We can be okay with it. We can recognize what's already true anyway. And that makes us more powerful. That gives us more access to our nefesh. And so the Hasidim in the Golus are not simply one way of finding the truth. The Hasidim and the Golus are the only way of finding the truth. The way of the Midas Hadin is locked. Nobody can make it through. Nobody can go and say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in all honesty, I've done it, I did it right, now give me what I deserve. And as long as we don't come to a conclusion that things should be better, then why will they be better? Who's going to be the one that makes them be better? If our own malach, if our own mazel, if our own spirit hasn't come to the conclusion that things need to be better, how are they going to get better? Who's going to make them better? And so it's only through us realizing certain things about life that we can change how we see life, that we can come to certain conclusions. And those conclusions will create the interaction with life, the interaction with reality, the interaction with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to change our destiny, to change how we experience life. And this is why chasidus is so important. This is why chasidus is the only way. It's because the way to access a midah keneged midah, that will be able to help you in this galus is only unconditional kindness. Any other midah that we try to enforce, any other midah that we try to dress HaKadosh Baruch Hu in, might backfire, might cause trouble. So somebody goes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and says, look what that person did, how come you're not punishing them? They're not realizing what they're really messing with, because they're bringing a midas hadin, they're bringing judgment into the world that's going to come upon themselves. It's also going to come on the other person. It's also going to come in a lot of unintended places, because it's a midah, it's an attribute, it's something that has consequences, it's an energy, it lives. And so the Chasidim HaRishonim, they recognize this reality, that when you can get a midah keneged midah that works in your favor, that's going to outdo all the ishtadlus you can do to try to get it just exactly right. Because then the goodness comes from above. The goodness comes from a place that's deeper than you, that's higher than you, that you can't even control. And so that brings a person to a place where he can allow himself to be vulnerable. He doesn't care. He recognizes the end. He recognizes that it's all going to the good. And so the details are not so meaningful anymore. The details are just there as part of the challenge, as part of the growth, as part of the recognition. But it's not about, what happened today, what happened tomorrow, who's holding score. There's no score. It's just a process that's going to end in a beautiful ending. It has to be that way. And whatever the steps to get there are, we want to be living already in our minds in that future good, because that gives us access to it already. That gives us a taste of it already. And that's the concept of having a tam of Olam Haba, like we have every Shabbos. We have a taste of the world to come. We have a taste of a better world, of a better place, of a better reality that will come. It's not a question. It will come because all this was designed for that. Otherwise it wouldn't be here. But at the same time, we don't know what's between us and that. But we can know for sure that the more we're going to hang on to the midas HaChesed, the more we're going to turn HaKadosh Baruch Hu's midas in that direction, it's certainly going to be easier. It's certainly going to be nicer. It's certainly going to be swifter. Because we know this galus is about sinas chinam. We know that we can feel it. We can feel the resistance in our nervous system. We can feel the lack of calm. And this is something that we have to overcome in order to get to a better place, in order for humanity to be able to heal. So we should all be zoche to be able to find the chasidus within our heart, so that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who is El Malei Rachamim, will have chasidus on us, and he'll be able to take us out from this mess and bring us the Gila Shlema, Meir B'Yameinu.
Right, so what about Ein Samchan Alames? So let's say you're on your last dollar and you see an old man with a poor man. You say, okay, I'm going to give this dollar because Hashem, I'm going to be unsafe, and that's going to be...
So that's what I'm saying. You don't have to make yourself unsafe. You're already unsafe. Just allowing your ego to be okay with that, that's the Mesiras Nefesh. That's giving your Nefesh back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's like before you go to sleep, people used to be conscious of the fact that when they go to sleep, they have no control over their spirit. So they would say the pasuk, B'yadchav kedrichi, v'disa yisei Hashem keilem. It's like they're giving it to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They're putting it under His care, so He gives it back. And in the morning, He always gives it back. So what does this mean? Obviously, there's a process of how this works. But you don't control it. And anything you don't control weakens your ego. Makes you realize that you're at the mercy of bigger and other things, and you still have to feel safe somehow. If you don't feel safe with those things, then now you're losing your ability to function properly. So it's allowing your awareness to take in all that vulnerability and realizing, but whoever created life already knew of all these things, and still He created me, and it works. It's been working for a very long time, even before I got here. So it must be that I'm not the necessary component to make life work. Life works even without me. And therefore, I can just allow life to happen. And I don't have to be the one controlling it. I can let whatever controlled life before I was born continue to control it, and I'll just enjoy the ride.
So my question then is saying to basically give up all control, you shouldn't have any control.
You don't. I'm not saying you should give anything up.
We don't have any control. So, again, Ein Samchan Al Nes, how does that play a part? Because essentially, when I give up all control, I am relying on a Nes. I'm relying on a miracle. Yeah, I am.
When you become aware that you don't have control, you're still doing the exact same things you were doing previously. The difference is that you know that it's not really up to you what the results are going to be of your actions. So you might start a company, for example. While you're feeling control, you're not going to sleep at night, you're going to be concerned, you're going to worry, because you want to control that it should succeed. When you're allowed to be vulnerable, you know, and you're open to the fact that it might succeed, it might not succeed. You're still going to do everything you can to make it succeed, but you're not going to carry the emotional burden that if it doesn't succeed, something in you has been violated. You already understood when you started what the realities are, and you were okay with those realities, and whichever way it's going to fall, you don't control the outcomes of the things you do. And this is just a fact that was always true and always will be true. The difference is how much of it can you handle.
So act as if you're in control, but not think.
You're not in control, but you're doing stuff that you want done because you want HaKadosh Baruch Hu to use you to do those things. So if I'm hungry, I'm going to eat because I assume that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if he wants me to eat, will use my hands to feed me and not use somebody else's hands to put food in my mouth. So when I do it, it doesn't mean I feel in control. It means that I assume that this is what he wants me to do. Then if it doesn't work out, I find out that this is not what he wanted me to do, and that's okay too. So there's no control, but you can still channel whatever energies you want to create things and manifest realities, because this is what you were given the power to do. You have your thoughts, your speech, and your action to create. But you can't control the results of your creations. You can't control how they're going to be interpreted by other people, and you can't control how they're going to affect you financially or otherwise. So it's awareness. It's not giving anything up. That awareness means that now HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in charge of your nefesh, and you know it.
But there are also practical things, like, for example, giving tzedakah that is going to.
So there are guidelines. There are guidelines for giving tzedakah. That's what he said. If somebody is already giving a mincha, where he's giving up a big portion of what he has, that's called v'nefesh kisakif, because he's mamish giving up that very last piece of what he has to give. The more a person is distant from that, the less of his heart is in the giving. So he's still giving maybe a lot, but his heart is not giving a piece of his heart. And it's the heart that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants more than everything. The only reason he takes the giving is so that the heart can give. Because he wants the heart, he doesn't want the giving.
And also, how much time should we set aside to daven? And when I say daven, I don't just mean minyan and shachris milchama. I mean, like, let's say going to the forest and doing his chasidus and that kind of.
It's a very individual thing. It's based on how much can you get benefit from what you're doing. So if you're making connection, that's very valuable time. So you want to do that. But if at some point everybody has where they can't handle at this point that much time because it's already, they get restless, they're done with it. And so that's a sign that's it, that's their limit.
What if you could spend the whole day in the forest doing stuff?
Well, yeah, it's not meant to be.
Sorry, I just asked.
It's not meant to be a place to escape. It's meant to be a place to connect. And so, if we do it in an impractical way, it's going to end up disconnecting us, not connecting us. So the concept is to connect, which means that we have to have practically our needs set aside, the people around us satisfied and happy, and then we can start looking for ourselves, you know.